out. Another thing from my list.
And then the longest 30 seconds of the entire evening.
They can get it up.
Ready? Good evening and welcome to the November 14th, I had to remember what day it was, my apologies, meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Edmund Chernesky and I am chair of this commission for this year. Other commission members in attendance this evening are Liam Reardon, who is vice president, we've been promoted, vice chairman of the commission, Anne Marie Quinn, Nathaniel King, and alternate member Matthew Whitecamp. And is Rebecca available?
Doesn't look like
Okay.
it.
We will not hold the meeting up for that. We might be joined by Rebecca Krupke via Zoom. So, if all regular members are in attendance, associate members will participate in the meeting but do not vote on motions. If any regular members are absent, associate members will vote, such as there are a total of 5 votes for every motion. So, Matthew, we will likely be dependent on you for your vote this evening. Also in attendance, we have Anya Colette from analyst from the planning office, and or have you changed titles?
Planning officer,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry, it's not,
It's okay.
I have to update my script.
It's okay.
And Brian Scannell, also from the planning office. The Historic Preservation Commission has 2 roles. First, we serve as the Bangor Center Revitalization Area Design Review Committee, designated under Section 71 of City Ordinances, which covers review issues in the downtown and waterfront areas of Bangor. Second, the commission has several responsibilities under the Historic Preservation section of City Ordinances, which is Section 148, including issuing certificates of appropriateness for construction of or changes to buildings within the city's designated historic districts, which is what we'll be doing tonight. Depending on the location, we may have to review a proposal under design review criteria, historic preservation criteria, or both. A total of 5 commission members, again, will be voting. And a historic preservation or certificate of appropriateness application must receive 4 affirmative votes to be approved. The order of the meeting is as follows. I will call the applicants in the order that they appear in the agenda. When I call your project, I will ask you to present your application from the podium here for ease of recording. Once you have made your presentation, I will ask for the consultant's report, which I will read into the record. Then questions from commission members, and third, any questions or comments from the audience. I know we have a presentation planned for the evening. We will include that as part of the audience participation part of this session. When questions are completed, the commission will have a discussion of the proposal and, check the page, the standards of review under which the proposal is being considered. Those were attached with our meeting notes just in case anybody needed to review for slate roofs. When discussion is complete, the commission will take action on the proposal to approve, deny, or otherwise handle it. For approval of a proposal evaluated under both design review and historic preservation, the commission will make separate motions related to each type of review. I will then ask for each commission member's vote, and we'll do that by roll call. 3 final comments for applicants before the commission. If it looks like your project will not be approved, you may choose to withdraw your application, amend it, and then resubmit it for a future meeting. If you disagree with the decision of the commission regarding your project, you of course have the right to appeal the decision to the Board of Appeals, and all projects need to be started within 6 months and completed within a year. Otherwise, a new application to the commission will need to be made and approved prior to starting your agenda. No, your project, not your agenda, sorry. All right. We will start right off the bat with the first order of business, which is a certificate of appropriateness for 198 Broadway, map lot 047-012, the Broadway Historical District. The applicant owner is Stephen Farren, or Farren. Farren?
Yep.
Approval is requested for a certificate of appropriateness to replace a slate roof with asphalt shingles. The property is located, again, at map lot 047-012 in the Broadway Historic District. The floor is yours.
You pretty much summed it all up right there. Yeah, I'd like to replace, my slate has been looked over by a number of contractors, and anytime they've done repairs, they said it's become too brittle, and trying to do repairs is not working, and there's a lot of chipping and breaking and all of that. So I would like to replace it with, it's the GAF slate line shingle, which is the same one, just for reference, as I'm sure you've seen, is the one on the Bangor Waterworks building on State Street.
Yes.
And other than that, everything, it'll just be brand new.
Okay. Let's see. You guys okay if I proceed to the consultant's report?
Can I interject? I might have a conflict on this one
Okay,
for voting purposes. So I think that you,
we should discuss that.
prior to,
Yes. So you should just explain why you feel you have conflict in the board.
professionally, I work frequently on slate roofs. It's one of my areas of expertise. And I have not met Mr. Farren before. I have no financial dealings with him. But two of my colleagues are present in the audience who want to present about slate roofs.
I assumed, but thank you.
So,
So in the past, when we've had discussions about whether he has to leave the room for us to discuss, correct? Or, I don't remember.
yeah, so the commission has to determine if you think he has a conflict, you have to vote on it. I will say, conflict by our definitions is, you would receive a financial benefit from the project being approved, or some other personal benefit. So that's pretty much the definition of it.
Then I will ask specifically, will you be receiving a financial benefit from this project being approved?
No.
Okay.
So we are voting on whether or not we think Matthew should be recused from voting on this particular issue? Is that what you're
Yes.
looking at me
Yes.
for?
Yes.
So my vote is that he does not need to recuse himself.
Do we need
because
this as a
he's-
motion?
I think you need a motion, yeah.
So I will present a motion that we consider whether or not Matthew should recuse himself from the first item on the agenda tonight.
Nate, I'll start with you.
Does it need to recuse himself?
Does not.
Does not, right,
Okay.
does not need to recuse himself.
Okay,
I agree.
okay.
And I also will vote that he does not need to recuse himself.
The phrasing of this was awkward, but I would also support that he does not need to recuse himself if he does not have a financial benefit from this. As such, Matthew may, of course, remain and contribute. Thank you.
Yep.
I hadn't gavelled today. Anything else you'd like to add before I proceed with the consultant's report?
I don't think so.
Okay. So the consultant's comments, and I'll go through those just so they are on the record. And then if you'd like, you may, I know you provided your responses, but we'll go
Yeah.
through those as well.
Okay.
So our consultant's report states that, based on the information contained in the application, the consultant recommends that we determine or consider the following. Slate shingles exist on the house and at the large stable behind. Does the applicant intend to replace the slate shingles on the stable with asphalt shingles as well as the house? The applicant states that the only solution is to remove the slate shingles and the wood shingles below and replace them with asphalt shingles. Can the slate shingles not be reinstalled with matching slate shingles, replacing the damaged ones? A slate roof is far more sustainable than asphalt, and the asphalt roof will likely be replaced 3 times within the 75 to 100 year lifespan of a slate roof. The Bangor Waterworks project was cited as a project that the HPC approved, replacing the original slates with asphalt shingles. As the commission knows, every project is reviewed on its own merits. Unlike the Waterworks, the Pitcher House is in a neighborhood surrounded with houses of highly valued architecture. And finally, a sheet metal eave trim exists at the roof eaves. Will this detail be maintained? And I can review yours for the commission if you'd like, or you can restate them as you wish.
Either way, yeah. You're certainly welcome.
The provided responses were that the shingles the slate shingles on the stable or barn will be replaced with the same GAS slate line shingles. This area also has multiple leaks and deteriorating shingles. Correct.
Correct.
The shingles currently on the property have deteriorated to a point where reinstalling them would not solve the issue or improve the appearance. The roofing contractors state that due to their brittle condition, the majority of the existing shingles will most definitely break and deteriorate even further during removal. At a minimum, 90% of the existing shingles currently have breaks and deterioration. This deterioration of the shingles will only continue, rendering the reinstallation of existing material to be nothing more than a temporary fix, along with being visually displeasing. Correct.
Correct.
Previous repairs and every attempt to match existing patina of current shingle with other shingle has been impossible despite all efforts. Each repair previously made shows a clear difference in the material. Correct. The GAF slate line has a lifetime warranty to the original and second owner if installed by a certified contractor. The contract performing the installation work is a preferred GAF installer. The cost to replace the slate would exceed 3 to 4 times that of the pro slate line with no warranty as to workmanship. I only use the Bangor Waterworks building as an example, as it is the same product that the applicant is proposing and gives a great visual of what the product looks like installed. Current properties located within the Broadway Historic District with asphalt roofs are house numbers 80, 133, 135, 163, 164, 191, 205, 208, 217, and 218. The majority of those that still have slate roofs are in need of replacement and are not visually pleasing. Properties located within the Whitney Park Historic District, also known as West Broadway, with asphalt roofs are as follows. Number 2, 32, 40, and 47, which is the Stephen King home. 48, 56, 63, 64, 69, 72, 80, 91, and 101, which has a metal roof.
Yep.
Okay. A drastic number of the houses within the Broadway Historic District are deteriorating nearly to a point of disrepair. My intention is to preserve and restore the highly valued architecture on my own home to ensure that it too does not fall into disrepair as some have. The cost required to maintain and preserve such a home is significant. In some cases, the cost could far exceed the actual value of the home, which would ultimately result in the loss of these homes.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And eave trim will be replaced with a suitable material.
Correct.
Okay. Anything you would like to add?
I think you summed it up.
Just read it in. All right. Questions from commission members on the proposal in front of us or Mike's reports?
I'd like to ask a couple of questions just to clarify some of the language in your proposal.
Yeah.
In your statement. Scrolling through here. So you say that according to the foremost professional roofing experts in this area, this is the sort of, they've led you to this decision.
Yes.
So could you give me a sense of how many professional roofing experts you spoke to and how you come up with the sense that these are the foremost in the area?
Well, one of the last previous, who unfortunately is no longer with us, Walter Musson, told me that
Yeah.
3 or so years ago that I was beyond, and when he did one of the repairs, he said, I have no way of matching these. He said, I went to my own yard, which I have been told had millions upon millions of shingles, and he could not match them, but he said there were too many breaking at the time, and to salvage them would be impossible. And just that, and now it's gotten even worse. And repairs, what has happened is has led to anytime we've done a repair, it then affects the area right next to it, and the leak just seems to move and move and move, and at this point, it would just be financially impossible to continue on that way, and then again, still have with all of ours being broken and chipped, and just from being there for who knows how many years, 175 or 100 that they've already been there, and just with the constant repairs, it's become impossible to maintain, so.
And then in the next bullet of your statement to us, you say that the only solution is to remove the slate and wood shingles and replace them with a more sustainable material?
Yes.
And I wonder, is this maybe a slight overstatement that there are other potential solutions, but it's the only solution that you consider financially?
Financially, yes.
valuable?
I mean, it's a large house, a large barn. The financial impact would be almost the cost of the house, and
Yeah.
I would not be able to get an equity loan to get 75% of the value of the home for.
And then the last question I just have about your language in the statement is that you describe the material that you want to use as more sustainable than slate. And I think that the consultant's report took some issue with that and said that slate is more sustainable than a petroleum product. And I wonder if you would modify that language, or do you stand by your sense?
Well, I
that-
mean, it's in a sense, I mean, slate, yes, slate may last, the slate itself may last longer, but constantly needs repairs. after a certain amount of years, the same as with an asphalt roof. And the new asphalt roofs are well beyond, they don't have a 30-year warranty on them, they have a 50-year warranty. This one has a lifetime warranty to even a second owner, so assuming if I were to live there for another 30 years and somebody else could live there for another 30 years, it would still be warranted. So it's just, I think asphalt has become a lot more, even better than it was.
So it
10,
might
15
be
years.
more durable, but I don't think that really meets the definition of sustainable.
Sure.
Right, since particularly because it's a petroleum product and
Right.
its life would still be shorter than slate.
Very, yes, it could be.
Okay, so those are my questions about the language in your statement.
I guess, Mr. Farren, your estimations of 90% of the slates being broken or chipped. I was just sitting here looking at your photographs, and in terms of broken slates that would be leaking in this picture, I see 3. And a chip slate doesn't necessarily indicate a leak, because when you lay a slate roof, you tend to have 3 slates covering one area. So if it's broken down the middle, that could be an area that's a leak, but a chipped corner, as long as it doesn't extend all the way up and within 2 inches of the center, will not leak. So chips, while it can be cosmetically displeasing, aren't necessarily indicative of a problem larger than that, a simple chip.
So a question might be, I think this was in your response, not in your initial statement. I'm just looking for the exact language. You say at a minimum, 90% of the existing shingles currently have breaks and deterioration. Do you think that might be a bit of an overstatement, or do you stand by that?
I mean, I would
at
stand by,
least
I mean,
9
from
out of
everywhere
10?
that I can view, there are actual broken corners, splits, I mean, that you cannot see in a picture, slices right down through a good majority of them. And yeah, I mean, it's beyond, there are a lot of areas that are moving, shifting and falling off. So it's, yeah, I mean, very much close to 90%. It's, you know, it's lived its life. It did its time, and
So close to 90% is different than at a minimum 90%.
I would say more than 90% of them, yes,
Okay.
are beyond, are no longer near what they looked like originally.
Anne Marie or Nate, anything pressing?
Not for me at the moment, no.
Yeah, I very much think that slate should stay on the houses that have it, if possible. I know a little bit about slate roofs, and would have repairs on my own, which was put on in 1860. So in terms of longevity, I know that slate holds up very well. I think some of the addresses that have been put into the report as having asphalt roofs had asphalt roofs to begin with. I know 72 West Broadway across from Stephen King's house was always an asphalt shingle. Even though it looks like a house that might have had slate, it was a shingle style house, or is a shingle style house, and so it always had asphalt. And there was just a question of replacing the green asphalt with green asphalt just to keep the historic character of it. But the roof that you're proposing really does not look like the slate roof. I'm very familiar with your house because I lived across the street from you for a very long time.
Okay.
I grew up across the street from your house. So I think the slate, it needs to keep a slate roof if possible.
Well, from everyone that I have spoken to regarding that my slate is not repairable reusable, the cost to do that would be beyond reasonable, and anything that could be done when you look at the value of the home, it would be close to, I mean, not rough math, 60 to 70% of the value of the home
So
would be
someone-
investing in a roof.
So a slate person has looked at your
Yes.
roof and told you a price that is that much more than your asphalt
Yes.
would be? I think that's one thing that we cannot get into is talking about the expense of something. I mean, it's just, it's,
Chair? Do you want to speak on that?
I've been thinking about that.
Yeah,
Well, there is a thing in the code 148-8 about undue hardship.
Yes.
That's more along the lines of Penn State Pennsylvania Station versus, in order to have a equal application of your determinations, you're using, the property cannot, the property cannot yield a reasonable economic return.
Correct.
So that's the exception. It's not fiscally. It's about the returns on the property.
Thank you.
There's also, I think, C, which says that the conditions or circumstances which constitute the hardship were not caused or created by the property owner, right?
So at
After an amendment to subsection 148, Tech 5. So is that to mean prior to the, like, if for example, he was owning the home prior to the establishment of the commission, or is that meaning something different?
I think it usually means prior to him taking on the property. So that usually applies in the case of like someone buys a property and then they do something to the property that then
Right.
causes the hardship. In this case, he wouldn't have done anything because it's the existing.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
I was anticipating prior to us going into our session of conversation about it, that we would review the evaluation standards. Just to keep them fresh in everyone's mind.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for the applicant at this point?
No, not for me.
Nate, last chance for questions for the applicant.
I mean, I'm just gonna, I guess it's an assumption that the color match on the asphalt is gonna be in similar color to, or
Yes.
color palette to the slate.
Yeah,
Color.
Do you have a sample of it with you?
I do, it's right there.
We would love to see that. Emery, do you have additional questions at this time for the applicant?
I would like,
Antique slate color, do you want to take it, you want me to hold it?
I mean, sure.
And I think it should have been, if you guys got the pictures in the pamphlet, the GAF pamphlet, to show what it looks like when it's.
Fairly similar. You wanna pass it down?
sure.
thanks.
I just didn't know.
Heavy board.
I asked for a mini one, they didn't have any.
Let me lead here.
Yeah, why don't, I have a feeling we'll be, well, here, I'll just stick it behind for a moment. Here, we can leave it there.
So, I guess I do have a question. Did you have a slate person come in and
Yes.
where is that, where, do you have the information from that, calling that person in?
I do not have that with me now. From everyone that I brought in, all they were willing to give was verbal estimates at that time, saying they weren't sure what the cost exactly would be because of variables with our building, but that there was a ballpark of where the price would start.
Do you remember what the ballpark numbers were?
Yes. The first, one of them was starting at 125,000, another one was 140. And the other one, I don't even recall, but I believe it was somewhere in that area also.
Okay.
And that was not including if it needed resheathed and other such things.
So that was to take the existing slate off and replace it with new slate?
Yes, because the existing slate is in such poor condition and brittle.
Not rehabable.
Right.
Liam, any additional questions?
I mean, I do think that, we're gonna get into the language of the evaluation standards, which is sort of the tough spot that the commission is in, right? We have this sort of language that we make decisions about these situations, and we're supposed to have like the sense of local standards and how you make this call in terms of the language. And I think, as you'll hear when we go through them kind of item by item, the language is often, pretty clear about preserving things like skilled craftsmanship and only removing distinguishing features when it is absolutely necessary. So the language sets a pretty high bar for a significant change of material from slate, which is clearly historically significant and is part of the craftsmanship of the mid-19th century grandeur when your house was first built. So I just want to sort of make this point while you're still here and can respond to it in the Q&A session. It does call for a pretty high standard on the applicant's part to explain why it would be overwhelming to stick to the straight and narrow of renovating or even replacing in kind.
Sure.
And so I guess depending on how the discussion goes, one suggestion might be to make that case particularly effectively to actually present as part of a revised application quotes from Slate people and the quote for this particular project. Then we would be in a position to say, well, wow, look, we really see it here. Whereas, I'm not doubting your honesty. I think I know that slate is more expensive. It does represent a much bigger commitment, but given the language in the code, it puts us in a tough spot to approve that without meeting a certain high standard. So that's just, I don't know if you want to respond to that, if you had a sense of this being kind of a tough issue, given the language
Well,
of
I
a
mean,
house
for
in a
me,
historic
this
district.
is, to do slate is, to replace with new slate is not sustainable for me. It would
Yeah.
not be possible, and I would lose the house because the leaks will continue and continue and continue. And again, for me, if you look at my house and look at the roof, it's not aesthetically pleasing as it is. It is broken in places, it's stained, the shingles don't match, anything that has, yes, the shingles that have been replaced do not match in any sense, and it just continues and continues from there, and it would not be, for me, would not be sustainable, and unfortunately would lead to more issues with the house, more rot that I, again, would then not be able to repair, and the house would ultimately fall into disrepair.
Yeah, we do understand
Yeah.
that. I mean, it is a tough
Yeah.
position to be in. I fully understand that. Just one other question I want to ask about the consultant called attention to the metal pieces of
Yeah.
the eaves. And I couldn't entirely tell, but the photos seem to show that there also is maybe a metal piece across the crown of the building.
The ridge,
Is there
yes.
slate all the way to the peak, or is there a metal?
There is the metal, yeah, like the large drip edge.
And so at the drip edge at the bottom of the eaves, but also at the very top, at the sort
At
of
the
peak
top,
of the house
yeah,
is
there's the
also.
rusting metal ridges up there.
So your response to his question about the eaves, and now I'm adding in the
Yeah.
crown as well, you say that these will be replaced with suitable material.
So the ridge will be the asphalt, so it'll match the roof.
But it would not match the existing look of the house with the metal.
Right.
At
It
the
would-
bottom and
It
at
would
the
be
crown.
more like all of, or I shouldn't say all, the majority, many of them around me have capped of the same color, and that's what it would be.
So that would be a significant departure from the existing historic look of the house.
Yeah,
Like you could use this alternate material, but include metal pieces that would be more consistent with the historic look.
and I could certainly discuss that with my roofer to see what there is possible for that. I mean, the pieces that are there, as I don't think you can tell from the pictures, are rusted away. They were at one point
Yeah, yeah.
gray, and now some are brown, some are gray, some are whatever. So yeah, and then with the metal that's there at the eaves seems to have a foil tape on it in a lot of places, and maybe some tar or something. I don't know exactly what.
Yeah.
It is. Just repairs over the years that may not have been up to par.
Yeah, I get, just my point is that to replace it with suitable material is pretty different from what a historic preservation commission would hope for a house in a historic district that rather, would be appropriate to the time period or attempting to replicate the look as closely as we can,
Right.
given the other transitions
Yeah.
that seem
I
necessary.
mean, looking at most of them in my area, they don't have that metal ridge on the top. I'm sure some of them do, but a lot of them, the ones that I can see out my windows, have the similar, I don't know that it's.
Yeah, I don't, I don't even, I can
I
just,
think in a way, it would just even without, for me, not having the rusting metal there would just be a cleaner, more pleasing look.
right. Thanks.
Yeah.
I know I've said last chance a couple times, but this is gonna be a question-heavy presentation. Anything that has recently sparked?
So you would consider then, if, at least attempting to keep some form of the metal on the top of the roof that matches sort of the character, I guess, of the home.
Yeah, I could certainly look into that. In my own personal preference, I would rather see it all just one. I think looking for me, and that's my own personal.
Sure.
Looking at other homes that don't have that, I find them more appealing. But that's, again, personal preference.
Did we have anything on historically what the home looked like? Is there anything
Oh, I can,
Deborah talked about?
You need this one, right?
yeah, I can,
I mean, historically, the house didn't have a
I'm sure-
slate roof on it anyways. The house had it had a wood shingle roof.
it was cedar probably until the Great Fire, or right after.
Yes, stuff others.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's still, because those wood shingles are still underneath the slate.
And is there significant, I don't know if this ties into, you said there's significant leaks
Yes,
occurring internally in the structure?
yes.
Because
Yeah,
of
right now there are four visible ones that are visible anytime it rains. It hasn't rained in months, so it's, I've gotten a little bit of a break, but anytime it does, they come in quick. So and as roofers that I've spoken to have said, where we also do have the wood shingle underneath the slate, it's possible it's getting underneath the slate and penetrating the wood shingle and hasn't quite gotten where it's being trapped in areas, just water pockets there. So it's repairs are beyond useless at this point.
And this is just in the historic district, this isn't a registered eligible property, nothing that we have to look at Secretary of Standards for, right?
To my understanding, yes, it is just in the historical district. It's not
Yeah.
Yeah.
a specified property.
No, it's not a specified property.
I'm just curious about the.
Yeah, it's gonna,
Sure.
this takes a minute.
Yeah, so if anyone else has questions, please.
Okay. If there are no other questions from the commission, we will move into the questions from the audience.
So Seema, you better take a seat for a while,
All
and
right.
maybe we'll call you back up.
I did just want to note on that last point, the code does say you should be guided by, but not bound by the secretary guidelines.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't hear what she said.
guided by, but not bound by the secretary's
I'm
guidance.
not sure. It's restrictions.
In the end of the day, it's all up to the local commission.
The state,
Isn't that
Yeah.
special?
so the state
Yes,
has
or
our.
they pass the buck.
Well, I mean, and if it was a property that itself was on the register, then obviously you have to look at it.
Oh,
a little
sure,
stricter.
sure.
It's a contributing property, it's in the district, it's still important, but I'm not as concerned then with the Secretary of Standards, being rigid with those.
Well, in some historic districts, every house is specially designated. So, because in Whitney Park, it's, it's historic for Bangor, but it's
listed in here,
also
though.
on the National
Right.
Register. So, I don't know about this piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, just-
Gentleman from Blackstone,
Sure. Okay,
other audience members?
take a gander, I might have missed.
I'll wait, but.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, please approach the podium.
We have a lot of stuff here, so we're gonna sit up for a second.
Okay.
That will bring some visuals since not many people get up on the roofs actually. So this is just educational, nothing personal.
It's 198.
Picture house.
Alright. So these are two comparisons here.
Okay.
We'll point out some important things about them a little
So
later.
If you
you
could-
start by identifying yourself as part of the public record, yeah.
Thank you, Liam.
Okay, my name is Elliot Huguenard. I'm an owner of Blackstone Restoration. This is my partner Jed Nickerson. This is Matt Whitecamp, he's another one of my partners. And we specialize in slate roofing, copper roofing, and heritage building.
Thank you.
Can I pass out some pictures?
Sure.
And have you guys follow along? I have them numbered here. We were planning something a little better, but time got a hold of us, so please try to follow along. You can just pull them out. I have them all numbered.
How do we share?
Yes.
Just give you this packet and follow along too.
Sure, that'd be great. Okay, we're a small business founded in Bangor. We serve the whole state of Maine. Like I said, we specialize in slate, copper, and heritage building. I wanted to point out that all three of us own old slate roofs, and the slate has been on there the lifetime of our homes, right? So they're beat up, and we know about beat up slate roofs. Our mission is to preserve the historical structures and continue the traditional Maine craftsmanship of slate roofing and historical building. Over the last several years, we've been contracted by the state of Maine. So we've been out of town in Augusta and we've been on the AmHi campus over there restoring their old buildings, 2 of them to be exact. So for the first picture, this is the Tyson building, picture number 1. We tore off asphalt and how should I say? It was built with slate, they tore it off, put on asphalt, and they paid us to restore it to slate. It was a big job. Picture number 2 is the boys on the large tower. We're probably 100 feet in the air right there. And this is new slate. So this is as the job is progressing here. We're almost done, that's like January.
And boy, was that cold.
Oh, it was the worst. Anyway, we survived. Picture number 3 is a really important one because the center building on the AmHi campus, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the AmHi campus, but this is the building in the middle of the complex. The trusses down on the right, bottom right, they were failing, due to poor maintenance on the building and leaks. So we rebuilt the trusses and we took out the whole valley rafter there, replaced it all and put in a copper valley and custom gutters down at the bottom. They're copper as well. Picture number 4 is just soldering. This is just waterproofing your metal. It's a common practice that only tradesmen really know how to do. I haven't met many roofers that know much about soldering. Right? You kind of have to be a sheet metal guy as well. All right. Thank you. All right, so this past year, we finally made it back to Bangor, and we've recommitted to our community, and this year we've been serving our actual neighbors. I've done many houses in our neighborhood this year. We live in the little city area. Picture number 5 is a house on Conduskeg in Congress with new copper line gutter. Right, and this house had some pretty nasty slate on it, but it's waterproof now. Number 6 is one that we just recently finished. This is a picture of it in progress. It's on Madison Street. We did the whole house with snow aprons on both sides, copper ridge cap, and we repaired all of the slate shingles there. This house had also previously been burnt. The peak of the house had char on it, and the slate was still there, and we were able to restore the home back to normal. All right. And 6A is a picture of Matt's house on 88th Fountain Street. It's just a picture of how we can do, if the slate is bad, which we determined his was, how you can do slate in sections, if you'd like. Pick the worst spots or only repair some spots if you want to. You don't necessarily have to do a whole roof when repairing slate. Just an example, this is a watertight roof. Obviously, there are some cosmetic things going on there. All right. Oh, one more, number 7, just a little bit of flashy copper. That's important. And number 8 is sheet metal roofing, which is lead coated copper. This is a snow trap on a house on Emden Pond. And I'm proud of that one. So I thought I'd show it. Okay, as you said earlier, Bangor served as an epicenter of the production and transportation of raw materials. And these raw materials were used to build the entire East Coast, right? That includes Washington, D.C., where some Monson slate is still found. Some of these materials are lumber, granite, and slate that we shipped out of here. And the Monson vein of slate is the most sought after and valuable produced to date. We talk to salvage guys all the time out of Vermont. They're always asking us about if we can sell them Monson slate. And we don't do that often. Only in circumstances whenever we deem that the slate is bad, which is very rare. All right. And none of the hard part about this is none of the slate is quarried anymore, right? So the nearest strain that we can get is out of Quebec that matches the Monson. It's a little bit blacker because it's just newer, right? That's all. Same type of rock. All right. So there are some restoration challenges, but there are also advantages, right? Asphalt shingles, by our estimates, cost about $900 a square to replace a slate roof with asphalt, right? The cost for a new slate roof, let's say on the Madison house, I think it's picture number 6. Let's look at that. Picture number 6. On that house, it's a very simple house. It's just a gable roof, right? I would say for a new slate, it would cost about $2,200 to replace, per square to replace that roof. But for Matt's house, with all of the angles and metal and just crazy things, I'd say that would be $5,000 a square plus, right? But in that area, I think that's a good ballpark estimate, right? We have been around this town enough to know that the majority of the slate roofs here are still good. They just need simple maintenance, routine maintenance. And also, a lot of the metal is getting old. It's not necessarily the slate that's bad, it's a lot of galvanized steel that is rusty, a lot of gutters that are leaking, causing holes and leaks inside the eaves. So galvanized metal, let's say it lasts about 40 years, right? A lot of that metal is done. Copper, on the other hand, lasts about 100 years. And you see that most of these houses around that have copper do much better. So the thing is, whenever a roof has been neglected, it's gonna cost more. I mean, that's just the reality. Asphalt shingles, in our opinion, they aren't worth it to remove instead of just repair some, right? Slate is the most sustainable because it's natural, it has a long lifespan, it's durable, it's a clean product, and it's serviceable, right? We can go up and we can change out one slate if it's broken. Or we could change out as many as needed in an area and not touch any other part of the roof. And the worst, by the way, is a roofer that will come out and walk all over your slate and then tell you that your slate is bad. So that's what we try to stay away from. All right, so here we are. We have a couple tragedies this year that I need to show you. First is the Baptist Church on Center Street. This was perfectly good slate. I heard it come off. It sounded great. Now there's some cheap metal, some steel up there. Kind of sad to see. Anyway, that's only because we care so much and it's our job. Second one is the George Orff House. It's a beautiful house on Jefferson Street. Great slate. We had done work there before for the previous owner. Wish we could have done more, but we got swept away to Augusta. And when we did, this happened. They took away all the nice details of the place and they made it all black. And I mean, it doesn't look bad, right? It's not a terrible look, but it's not slate, right? And this roof will go bad in 20 years. And another one here, which is, I mean, we knew that this one has been gone for a while. This one was coming, but we salvaged the slate off of what was left of the YMCA building. And the reason that this building isn't around anymore is because of poor maintenance, poor craftsmanship, and probably lack of proper knowledge of heritage buildings, right? Yes, it is expensive to maintain a building like this, but that could still be around. Okay, one other thing is in Augusta, they decided to contract out a roofer who put on slate, fake slate, like a synthetic slate, right? And that's picture number 12. And so that's what synthetic slate looks like in the wintertime when it gets cold and then it gets hot again and cold again. It rises up. It's just education, you know, me, in my opinion, let's stay away from this at all costs. It's not serviceable. The warranties are dubious and the craftsmanship is, well, it doesn't take any. How about that? Oh, I want to point out, the metal guys that did the metal on this job were amazing. So we'll give it to them on that one. And we only actually had one picture of this house. It was just a printing mistake, but this is a house that we did that has asphalt shingles. That's my neighbor's house. He needed new, his gutters were falling apart and rotting. I'll pass this one around. And we laid new asphalt because it was existing. But we aren't against asphalt. It's just not the preferred method of roofing for longevity. So this guy, our copper's gonna outlast those shingles, 4 times as long. So I'll pass this around. There we go. And I have a lot of samples here, just so you can get a feeling of how rugged a slate roof is. and how you can get a feeling of how rugged an asphalt roof is. All right, so be patient with me. Let me get my box full of goods here. All right. So I'm just gonna start out with just simple slate. We'll start with a Monson slate. This is an original slate from the YMCA building. 1891 was when it was built. Hear that? That's a good slate. Sounds good. Okay, you don't need to see that.
No.
That is all the slate off that building are like that, except for the few that were on the edges or in the valleys, or in vulnerable places under other roofs that could be, snow dumped on them or something like that. But that is a good slate. This is the slate that we get out of Quebec, this North Country slate. This is a new slate. Still a good sound. Not as good as Monson though. Alright, here's some Vermont slates that we keep around for special purposes. Not many slate around here are purple or green, but you can hear these ones are good as well. This is a new one.
That's the last of the purple slate.
Yeah, there's a much purple left. And then a green one that's not really nice. So, check it out. Alright. I just want to show you some fasteners that we use and some metals. I just put them in some bags so that we keep them together. We use copper nails. If it's a roof that was laid with steel around, we use steel nails because copper and steel do not mix.
No.
No, they don't. Here's just another type of nail that we use. That's how we secure copper to the roof with I can't remember what
Ring shank.
ring shank nails, thank you. Here's slate hooks. This is how we repair roofs. As you can see, we put one in today especially just to show you what a slate hook looks like. So this slate slides up and you can pull it out and then you can slide it down. Ooh, this one's tight. Anyway, it's a good fit. We love using copper, mostly because it lasts so long. It's easier to work with, and it's exciting because it's shiny in the beginning,
Even the green is nice.
right? And here's a sample of some galvanized steel that we also use, just not as much. Here's some underlayment that we use, very simple, just 30-pound felt. And I have some tools to show you, just so you know. All right, number one, this is a slate-specific hammer. It's important to have the right hammer. This is a slate ripper. This goes up under the slate, like that, and you can pull the nail out from under. That's how you remove a slate. Also, we use a flat bar. We use a stick rule, can't leave without a stick rule. And we use some cutters. You can cut slate with these, just like that. And I have another big one back there, I think, that I'll get for you real quick. I might have left that one in the car. Anyway, it looks like a paper shear, basically. Also, I wanted to just show you all old homes. This is the decking. Rough one side, 7/8 thick. There's no plywood ever involved in a slate roof. No synthetic products. It's all natural, all galvanically compatible. And as proven, it just lasts a long time. And this is a typical ridge cap. This is the Bangor style ridge cap that we make custom to every home. Size depends on the headlamp and size of the slate. So this is a little sharp, so I'll just show it to you. This one I think we made custom for Madison Street. It looks like it's pretty steep. So that's that. All right. And then I just want to show you what some fake slate looks like real quick so you get a feeling for it. And if you guys ever need to discuss this, you know what you're discussing. There's two different types there.
Do you know what kind of warranty they give the fake slate?
It depends on the company. I do not read too far into it. I'm not very interested in it. How about that? Okay. Just real quick, this is a landmark shingle. It's kind of like a upper middle grade shingle that is commonly used around here by most of the commercial roofers and residential roofers. And this is a product called Grace Ice and Water Shield. It's basically where dinosaurs went to die. They made all of that out of them. And then here's the type of nails that typically get used out of a nail gun, preferably blindfolded while hammering in asphalt shingles. Just playing. But it is, it does get rough out there. Oh, and a typical piece of drip edge that they would use at the eave. And I forgot something very important. Everyone should know about this. This is the most, how can I say? This is the most needed thing on historical houses in Bangor. No one can seem to find this and much less bend the metal to fit it. So we do a lot of gutter replacement. For instance, on that last house, we replaced all of the gutters with this. This is the middle size that we offer. There's one smaller and one larger. But that's Douglas fir, and we get it out of the West Coast. It matches most gutter profiles in Bangor. There are some crazy custom gutters around, but most of them are pretty standard like that. And what we do is imagine that at the bottom of this metal would come down and it would wrap down in and out over the top, and that would be your gutter liner. So.
What was the rough era of this kind of gutter construction?
That's been around since all of our houses have been built.
But the original, like when it was originally used, when did it go out of fashion? When did it?
It's never gone out of fashion. I think it's gone, how can I say, there are not craftsmen that know how to use it properly. And also it's expensive. So, those are all the things. I wanted to bring these so that you guys can feel them. Come knock on them with a hammer if you want. Just check it out to see what the products are about, how they feel to you. And then just to point out the significance of the slate, right? I mean, this is what our town is made of. This is our history in action on the roofs. So, just in conclusion, preserving slate is preserving Bangor's history, and I appreciate your time. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something. So, thank you again.
Thank you. Questions for slate experts? Matthew, any questions? Nate, cover yours. Anne Marie.
No, I just see such a contrast between those two.
Do you have anything for
I don't.
questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
I'll try to not leave things too much on the slate.
That's all right.
It can handle it. Thank you.
Should we leave these here or put them back? You guys wanna come check them out?
We're fine for the moment, thank you. You're one, actually. We're still in public comment if there's anything you would like to say. You don't have to.
I appreciate you asking. Thank you.
All right, then we will.
No one online?
Let's see. Endless pictures of Bea and Anne Marie. So we will close the public comment and enter into our discussion era. As such, I am going to review the provided standards that were attached to our paper, attached to our bundle to this, for this session. So, the evaluation standards, 148-9. The standards and requirements contained in this section shall be used in review of applications for certificates of appropriateness, minor alterations or revisions, and staff approvals. In general, a building or structure classified as a historic district or a building or structure located in an historic district or any part thereof or any appurtenance related to such structures, including but not limited to walls, fences, light fixtures, steps, paving, and signs, shall not be altered, constructed, moved, or demolished, and no certificate of appropriateness shall be issued for such actions unless they will preserve or enhance its historical or architectural character. Preserve or enhance. Standards for renovations, alterations, and repairs of existing buildings, structures, and appurtenances thereof. In determining compliance with these standards, the Commission shall be guided, although not bound, by the guidelines for applying the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties.
I'm sorry, is this an additional copy?
I only have the one.
Here, I have one. Yeah.
Maybe we could give it to Steve. It's a little hard to follow along.
You can have this after I
hearing
write.
the-
That's all right.
So I think we read 148-9A,
And started.
and we're
with B.
moving on to B.
Correct. The copies of these standards are on file in the Code Enforcement Office of City Hall. 2. Within historic districts, historic sites, and historic landmarks, the Commission shall use the standards listed below in the evaluation of an application for a certificate of appropriateness for all renovations, alterations, and repairs of existing buildings, structures, and appurtenances thereof. 2A. Every reasonable effort shall be made to provide a compatible use which will require minimum alteration to the structure and its environment. 2B. Rehabilitation work shall not destroy the distinguishing qualities nor character of the structure and its environment. The removal or alteration of any historic material or architectural features shall be avoided wherever possible. 2C. Deteriorated architectural features should be repaired rather than replaced wherever possible. In the event that replacement is necessary, the new material should match the material being replaced in composition, design, texture, and finish. Repair or replacement of missing architectural features should be based on physical or pictorial evidence rather than on conjectural designs or the availability of different architectural features from other buildings. 2D. Distinctive stylistic features or examples of skilled craftsmanship which characterize historic structures shall not be damaged or destroyed wherever possible. 2E. Changes which have taken place in the course of time are evidence of the history and development of the structure and its environment, and those changes which have acquired historic significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved wherever possible. 2F. All structures shall be recognized as products of their own time. Alterations to an historic building to create an earlier appearance shall not be undertaken except when qualifying as restoration under the Secretary of Interior standards for restoration. 2G, contemporary design for additions to existing structures shall only be approved if such design is compatible with the size, scale, material, and character of the neighborhood, structures, or its environment. 2H, mechanical equipment such as heat
You can
pumps.
skip this one.
You don't like this one?
No,
Okay.
it's long, not
That's
relevant.
true. I know.
You can just go to relevant standards, you know.
Okay. And 2I, wherever possible, all alterations to structures shall be done in such a manner that if they were to be removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the original structure would be unimpaired. And as the remainder addresses new construction, it is, you want to draw our attention to something?
Nathaniel mentioned section E, which I should have included in there about exceptional circumstances, and I can read that if you'd like.
I would love that.
Okay. So the commission may issue a certificate of appropriateness where the standards otherwise set forth in this section are not met, but where the commission determines that failure to issue the certificate would result in undue hardship to the owner of the property. Before the commission may issue a certificate under this subsection, the records must show the following. The property cannot yield a reasonable economic return, or the owner cannot make any reasonable use of the property. The plight of the owner is due to exceptional or unique circumstances and not to the general applicability of this chapter. And the conditions or circumstances which constitute the hardship were not caused or created by the property owner after an amendment to this chapter by which the property became subject to this chapter. And for the purposes of this subsection, reasonable economic return shall not be construed to mean a maximum return, and any reasonable use shall not be construed to mean the highest and best use.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone who would like to begin may begin.
One, I guess what we have to balance is the desire for some degree of the historic integrity with concerns about undue hardship. Historic buildings aren't easy in that regard. I think there's no denying the character of a slate roof is certainly better than an asphalt roof. But also, it comes at a cost, a significant financial cost, a significant financial burden on the homeowner. Whereas now we're starting to run into issues with cost, which snowballs, right? Create issues with leaks, create issues with the home, issues with, is it gonna even be livable? It hits a certain point, they can't do anything. So I think as we discuss this, we should do our best to keep that in mind and try to, as we're trying to toe the line on preservation or, progress or whatever you wanna call it.
I look at as the determination is this, there is no question that the slate roof is a distinguishing feature and as far as the appearance of the home. Has a reasonable effort, good faith effort been made to replace, repair, restore, or present that option?
Right.
I don't think we have enough information to decide it. I mean, we don't really have an estimate from a roofer who could do slate. And so that was not provided.
Or to compare it to the difference in costs between an asphalt and a slate replacement or repair.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Because under standard, I don't have my standards in front of me, I believe standard C was every effort should be made to repair.
Deteriorating architectural
distinct,
features should be
yeah.
repaired rather than replaced whenever possible.
And I think that's the first, in this discussion, that's the first hurdle we have to get over is, has there been an effort to repair this? And if it's past that, then the next tier would be to replace it in kind,
Yes.
unless there's undue financial hardship, but to decide that, we would need to have a cost analysis
Yeah.
between the two.
that's what I'm talking
And
So-
just as a reminder for the commission, if this comes to a proposal of vote tonight, we have to make a decision based on the information we have available to us.
Yes, exactly.
tonight.
But you can decide to postpone this to the next meeting and ask them to come back with more information. You just need to be
Also true.
specific about what information you need.
Are we able to ask, any questions of him while we're in this comment period, or no? Or is this only?
I feel like we have in the past, but this is closed discussion, so to speak.
I think you can, it's different with the applicant, you can ask the applicant specific questions and they can come answer.
So then, would you be able to provide,
Yes.
yeah, his place in charge?
Either you have to use Nate's microphone or you have to use the podium.
I have my phone, so would you be able to provide, I guess, evidence, for lack of a better term, that you've made a reasonable and good faith effort to repair or otherwise maintain the slate roof? And I know I believe you mentioned it previously.
Yes, we've
Discussion,
made
there had been
numerous
repairs.
repairs to it, and it just continues, as you mentioned, it just snowballs and continues to move over and move over and move over, and it's to a point where it's no longer financially possible to continue to make repairs and just repair and continue to let it deteriorate and become, in my opinion, an eyesore to look at.
Sure, and
So-
to Matt's point, we have to establish, right, that this reasonable and good faith effort was undertaken, and part of that is, can we show through a cost comparison?
Sure,
Yeah.
well, I think as they mentioned, starting price for slate is 2,200. And I know that asphalt roofers in this area are anywhere between 400 and 700 a square.
Additionally, just as a reminder, some of their price estimates provided by the gentleman in the audience had to do with the complexity of the roof as well, as Matthews was rather expensive compared
Yes,
to
that was painful.
some of the simpler ones. So the price of the slate roof can vary as well.
Right, and that's, I think, what Matt and Anne Marie have been getting to is, it would be, I think, prudent to have some numbers in front of us to allow us to come to a conclusion of, is this, I think, common sense, we could say, oh, yeah, sure, this sounds like a undue hardship, but we need to have that evidence in front of us to be able to make. that
Yeah, and I think the
determination.
difficulty with that is, as I mentioned earlier, to get anyone, and these guys were in Augusta, so probably weren't able to give a quote. Anyone that I spoke with who, I don't know their reputation, couldn't speak to their work. Any other roofers or contractors in general that I spoke to could not speak to their work. So that is the undue hardship here, is that there is a lack of craftsmanship, as they'll agree. There are a lack of people that are able to do this. And those people, it's only gonna become a smaller window of people willing to do it, as I'm sure they're struggling. They could probably use 10 more guys, but they can't find one. And it's gotten to a point where it's just, every contractor I talked to would not recommend any one of the people, and anyone that I did bring would not give anything in writing. They would give a ballpark and then say, but it could be more. That's where we're gonna start, and then we don't know, which, I'm in construction, I've been in construction for 30 years, and I think anybody knows, no one's gonna trust a contractor that says, well, we'll start at this price and see where it goes. So get in touch with your bank, and I'll let them know we're gonna need an unlimited check. So that's unfortunately how I wasn't able to get, actually, because no one would give anything in writing or guarantee anything as far as doing it in slate.
So this might sound a little repetitive and pedantic, but let me just run through it one more time.
Sure.
So the commission's role is to evaluate these standards with the knowledge of our local community and to try to apply them at a reasonable standard. And so as we went through that language, it does set some pretty high barriers for a house in a historic district. In general, the change has to preserve or enhance. And then, and I think as a general statement, a shift from slate to asphalt does not preserve or enhance. And then it provides us with more specific standards in thinking about this. Is it a minimum alteration? If removal or alteration of historical material should be avoided wherever possible. It should be repaired rather than replaced whenever possible. New materials should match in composition, design, etc. Examples of skilled craftsmanship shall not be damaged or destroyed wherever possible. Changes which have acquired historic significance in their own right shall be changed and preserved whenever possible. So, this is a high standard, and I think what you're hearing is that if in the written application, we could see, contacted 6 places, not a single person willing to give us an estimate. Got one estimate, here is the sum, here is the estimate compared with the other one. That would be the kind of information that would allow us to say, well, it does say wherever possible, we've got evidence in the application that he has done this. And so based on that, we might be more comfortable saying, let's go ahead with this in spite. And as a secondary issue too, I would like you to think about how you want to handle the eaves and that roof cap. And to what, are those historic defining features that you should make some effort to retain as you improve your roof and make it, to last the house. And, I think part of, sometimes.
Yeah, that, I'm more than happy to do that, the metal top,
So-
the metal eaves.
So
and-
often our role seems kind of punitive and mean-spirited, and we're kind of gatekeeping on this, and we're a burden to local homeowners. That is not what we intend to be.
Sure.
It's also about education and thinking through this sort of process. And, you have an absolutely magnificent house. And to, give us a little bit more of a sense of where you are, what the realities of Bangor construction in 2024 are, and what your range of options are, that would give us the ground to
And that's the issue,
evaluate it more
there are not a
effectively.
lot of options. And which I think is why everyone in those areas has gone to asphalt, is, not only cost, but it's also the lack of tradesmen to do it and sustain it. And as I've said, these houses are, you can spend a lifetime chasing rot around these houses, and if you can't get the top to not leak everything below it, you might as well just let it fall apart anyways. And that's unfortunately where many of these houses have gone. I mean, the houses on Broadway are not the houses they were 10 years ago, let alone 100 years ago. There are a lot of them that are beyond repair now, and they would never be able to. So I'm doing my very best to sustain my property as much as I can. That's why I'm going with the most expensive asphalt roof that you can get, that most mimics slate without being slate, and is very sustainable, is said to last 50 years plus, has an amazing warranty. The workmanship warranty on it is 30 years. To me, for me, it's the only solution. And slate is not a possible solution, and will not be, because it's just not sustainable at this point. For the value of the homes in that area, to invest that sort of money in a roof when the rest of the house may crumble, and to put a financial burden on somebody like that can then, because I may get the bank to give me that money, give me a $200,000 loan for a roof. And then after that, I can't repair anything else, and the rest of the house falls into disrepair, and everything we've done here is fruitless. That's where I am on this.
I was just gonna offer, it seems like what you're getting at is asking for specific quotes, and I was just gonna offer that we have a list of slate roof contractors. They're not recommendations, they're just a list of available contractors. If it helps, for people to reach out to for quotes, just was gonna offer that.
Well, I've had quotes, I've had verbal quotes, and it's not an option.
So I think where we're at in the meeting is that we can continue our discussion and then go forward on a vote of the application that's before us.
Yep.
You also could consider withdrawing your application, revising it, and resubmitting for us to discuss and vote on again at a future meeting.
My issue with that is the condition of the roof now and the damage it is causing to the rest of the home. If we start getting weather, I won't be able to wait another month for a meeting and then to schedule my contractor, who then may not be able to get there till
Yeah.
April or May at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think
The damages that it would cause to my home would add more and more expense and just,
But I think the only real difference is that you would save the application fee if you withdrew and resubmitted. If you want to keep the application in front of us, we could continue to discuss it,
Yeah, I'd
have a
like to do
vote,
that.
and then
I'd like to
depending
just-
on the outcome,
sure.
you could decide
Yeah.
what was next.
okay,
There-
yeah, that works for me.
Would, just a question for the commission here, would repair of a slate roof be a minor revision versus a new application?
Maintenance doesn't
Yeah.
even need a minor revision.
Exactly, okay.
so.
So I think that is something also to consider.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So I think, Steve, you probably take a seat
Okay.
and we'll,
you.
have
Thank you.
sum up our conversation and then probably move on to a vote. And I think where I'm at, to my colleagues, I will say, this is the classic difficult situation for us, that the standards are clear and slate is really prized and valuable. We also know that that's really expensive and we've got to think about this balance, as Nate was saying at the beginning. So that's the big issue,
I
of
guess-
course.
I
A
guess-
secondary issue for me, though, is also this issue about the eaves and the roof cap. And to me, a suitable replacement doesn't really meet the standard of historic preservation and really doing whatever's possible to keep that historic look. And
Yes.
that seems important to me.
I agree with you, Liam. Suitable has no real definition. It could be, your definition of suitable, it could be very different from my definition or Nathan's or Anne Marie's or anyone's. But I think we really lack the data to be able to approach this objectively in terms of the financial ramifications. And I am sympathetic. I understand what having a leaking roof is like. I'm sure we all have gone through that and it's not fun. But for me, this doesn't meet the threshold for B, C, or D under 148-9B2.
You can, or we have in the past had other motions where we specified the roof cap bit, if you'd like, or the equivalent thereof. It's not common, but we have done that.
Yes.
I want to say too, like, it's obviously, from a historical preservation standpoint, you want to keep the similar materials and the workmanship, and I can get that. But I do think doing something with the eaves, the cap on the roof, is at least a decent compromise on it. Is it ideal? No, it's not. I mean, ideally, it would be slate
I'm
replacement.
happy to do that.
And they have specified that in previous discussion. The one thing I am concerned about is holding on too tightly to B, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and not weighing that with, like putting the homeowner out, essentially, like the undue hardship.
Correct.
We've ran into this problem in the past with Windows and some of these other applications. And
Yes.
I know we've got to do our best to be fair and across the board. I think up to this point, we have done a pretty good job of that. So I think it's not gonna be a small sum of money too. It's not like we're talking a difference of a couple $100. We're talking probably several $1,000s.
No, and
And then the damage to the home, is the home still gonna be livable? Are we gonna cut into the future value or the reasonable economic return or whatever the language was? And are we willing to, as a commission, are we willing to throw all that aside because, well, he's not they're not doing this original craftsmanship, this original workmanship.
The balance be between preserving
Yeah.
some of the home or the bulk of its historic character and none of it, you mean?
Yeah, like I would be in favor of preserving some of that integrity, some of that character. If they can, if maintenance or replacement was a possibility, it sounded like it's not, but if it was a possibility, that would be great. If, there was but if that's not, and they're willing, and they've said they're willing, hey, to do new eaves and do new roof cap, it's better than nothing, and at least it helps. But, to hold out and say, well, we don't wanna improve this because we're not doing this historically crafted bespoke slate or whatever, just, I don't feel like that dog hunts,
Stephen,
Yes.
sorry.
Up, down, up, down.
You did state in your response to Mike's comments that previous repairs and every attempt to match existing patina of current shingle with other shingle has been impossible. How many other repairs have you attempted or had done?
So far, there have been seven different areas that have been repaired.
Do you recall how much each of those repairs cost you
Roughly between 3,000 and 5,000
per
per
repair?
repair.
Okay. And
The
about,
cost of a new roof now, that asphalt roof.
and about the size of the patches repaired, if you remember?
4 by 4,
Okay, thank you,
4 feet by 4 feet, yeah,
thank you. Just wanted the clarification on that.
yes.
And if I recall from his pictures of his roof line, he's more likely to be on the higher end of slate repair, though maybe not as much as Matthews.
Can I offer some
Please
knowledge
do.
to you guys? Irrespective of, with
Right.
Stephen's roof here, in my time in Bangor, I've come across only a handful of non-repairable roofs. There's actually one across kitty corner from his on Broadway that's far past its life.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at these pictures, this is a serviceable and maintainable roof.
Okay.
And, how to say it?
You can sit if you.
There's another house that I've taken care of that has cedar shake under the asphalt. It is difficult to repair, but doable, and it does tell a very interesting part of the history of Bangor, that these kind of as a reaction to the Great Fire, houses on kind of the margins that didn't burn, like Broadway and some other areas, as a reaction to this, people came and put slate over it because it wouldn't burn. So that tells a really interesting little story that almost no one knows about the building of these houses. And I think that is kind of one of these important things to consider in this story as well.
For context.
It is important context. Yeah, and I've only come across, I think, 2 other ones like this out of dozens, so. From looking at these pictures, 90% plus bad slate on there. I see maybe 5% bad slate on there. I have a very different assessment looking at the pictures here,
Thank you.
as a professional opinion.
Right,
I don't want to speak out of my lane, but it's hard not to in this, it's really hard not to in this one.
That is your lane.
Well, my lane as a
Well,
member of the
if I
commission.
could interject, you're looking at pictures, I've had slate guys who have come out and said that, as you said, this one sounds good, this one may not sound good, that they inspected it and said that these ones are bad, they're beyond salvageable. So,
and Marie, you've been silent.
Well, I don't have enough information to say yes to this.
Okay.
So I think I'll make a motion that we consider the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness at 198 Broadway.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Motion is seconded. Matthew,
I'm no under 148-9B, section 2, subparagraph B, C, and D.
Thank you. Nate?
I am yes under a condition of the eaves and the roof cap being, what was the word we used, being,
Matching
More
the existing
historically
profile.
appropriate.
more historically appropriate, thank you. In an attempt
I
to
think we would have to
mitigate.
specify that in the motion. We would have to
Yes.
specify that in the motion, you may only vote on on issuing it as is. Doesn't mean you can't do a
Right.
second motion.
Yes, because I believe that voting no would cause an unnecessary hardship on the homeowner or property owner.
Okay. Anne Marie?
So what am I voting on?
On the current application, are
As-
you
as
voting in
is.
favor of approval, or are you voting against approving the current application?
I'm against the current application because I don't have enough information to make a decision.
And it is an extremely difficult decision for me, but I also am gonna vote no on the existing application.
Okay. I am sympathetic with the financial hardship of replacing the roof or repairing the roof. I am in agreement with Anne Marie in that I would like to see additional financial information. Not specifically for you, but of the overall quote of the slate roof. I vote yes to approve. However, we have 3 noes and 2 yeses, which means we may not issue a certificate of appropriateness on this motion. If Nate, you wish to try a second motion, you may, if you wish to specify the roof visual adjustments, or that's, of course, up to you and the commission.
Would providing additional data that could be shared via the commission members on email constitute a minor revision, or is that nothing we can do? I'm unfamiliar with this part, so.
This would not be, in my opinion anyway, so I will, if I'm speaking out of turn, by all means. This is a full commission kind of vote. I am amenable if the turnaround on that was quick enough for you to meeting again sooner rather than
Yes.
ahead of our next scheduled one. I don't know how practical that is, but I am amenable to that, and
I
I
am as
feel
well.
the
Yeah.
commission
I am as
has been
well.
in the past as
I am
well.
I'm not out of state till mid-December.
Okay. I guess I would want data on repair of the slate, replacement of the slate, and then replacement of the asphalt.
Would we like to coach that or frame that in terms of motioning to continue to pick this up at a special session
Perhaps.
with the information requested?
A motion.
Is that acceptable?
Um,
Not out of order?
I think that you can do that. We would just have to look at scheduling. It would probably be the first week of December, which it would be right before your next meeting, so.
As long as it is before the 8th, I can easily make it.
When's our next scheduled? I don't have my calendar.
Um,
All right, Liam. you're
I'm
on the-
looking.
I think the next meeting would be December 12th, right?
Probably,
That's
yes.
the
The
second
11th is a
Thursday.
Wednesday.
Can you attend virtually, Nate?
I have
I
a
could.
quick question. I think you said that 2 of the people are missing that would vote?
One of the an alternate member is missing and one of our regular members is missing.
Okay. How many people normally vote?
You have to have 5 members vote, and there are only 5 of us today, which means everyone must vote, and you need 4 affirmatives to pass or to have a certificate of appropriateness.
So had the other 2 people came, I would have had 7 people voting, is that correct?
No,
No,
you still
only
would only
five.
have
Still would have
5.
It's just the associate members
Would not
be
vote.
voting.
They
They
would
would just be listening.
discuss but not vote.
Yeah,
Sure, okay.
yeah.
The associate members vote when a full member is not present.
It's, you have the opportunity to change one vote, but that would not get them required. However it is.
And I do, in a sense, I do take objection to, nothing against you, Mr. Keeler, but him voting, or
Whiteham.
like, on you voting for something that creates job security for you, that is, you should have recused yourself from this.
The commission,
That is something, I have to say, that is completely wrong for you to be speaking on behalf of this and to bring in your company and do a display on the same night is that this is happening, is an issue with me. I want everybody to know that. And if this vote is done, I'm just happy to bring this to appeals because I found this process extremely unfair, extremely biased. You should not be at this meeting. You should not be at this meeting. And this is wrong what you guys have done tonight. I want you to know that.
So
You have approved so many asphalt roofs throughout my own street and every other street. And now you bring in experts of your own and somebody who, an alternate, who works in this business and is going to vote and say on his, looking at a small picture, that he knows the quality of my roof. He does not. He does not. And I believe I called his company and nobody showed up. So this is, if we're done, if you guys have voted, get the paperwork ready. I'd like to bring this to appeals. I'll bring my display with me.
See, I just want to say that we are very sympathetic with your situation.
Sympathetic is one thing, but unfair is another. And this meeting was unfair. You cannot approve one person's home next door to my own, one meeting, and the next meeting that I come to not approve mine because before they stripped their slate off, put asphalt without a permit. Which the house across the street from me just did. Maybe the house you grew up in doesn't have slate on it anymore. They stripped it off and put asphalt on it. I know there was never a meeting for that.
I understand.
So, well,
I understand that you are very angry.
yes, this is because this is an unfair process.
And
Absolutely
if I
unfair.
could just respond. So we are a volunteer commission.
I understand that.
We are trying to do our level best to navigate a difficult decision. We had a divided vote. We are not conspiring against you. I understand that you feel the process is unfair, but we tried to do our best. Matthew explained his conflict of interest. We got advice from city staff that the standard set by law by the city is, does the person who should be considered for recusal have a direct financial impact in our decision? And as that is the standard the city has, maybe they should say, let me finish.
Let us define direct. Direct is him making sure he has job security for all of these other houses that he's convincing people
So
need
we did our best to meet the legal standard the city has set as we understand it.
Well, why was it understood that the house next door to me last week, that theirs was
Let me
okay,
finish.
when their house originally had slate? Why didn't you tell them, no, we want you to put it back to slate, we don't care that it was asphalt
I will-
before, that somebody got away with doing it without a permit? You should have had them,
So-
because you cannot take one house and say do this, tell the other house you can't.
Can
Tell
I-
this person to do that. It's
So
unfair, this whole process is unfair.
The second thing I will say is that you may consider comments made in public session to be unfair to you, but that is part of our legal obligation as a city commission, that there is an open discussion where neighbors, interested parties, anyone can come and comment.
And every one of my neighbors that I spoke with said, we're glad you're doing it. We're
I'm
gonna
just
have to
saying,
do it
we are
too."
required to do that.
And if there was
so-
anybody of my neighbors that rebutted it, they would have came.
And as to the issue of other examples, other things that have been allowed to do, we do our very best to be consistent. And I understand that it upsets you. I hope that you will file your appeal.
Yes, that's my
But
plan.
I would encourage you to file that appeal, but also to consider coming back before us with a modified application that addresses
Well,
some
what
of
you're
the.
asking for, you're asking me to get contractors to give me prices when contractors won't even show up and won't give a written price because they don't want anything to be bound by anything.
If you would include those in a
Statements.
clear way in your written application,
I'd like to just
Then-
go to appeals,
then
I
we-
think.
I'm just encouraging you to do both, because maybe
No.
one would be faster than the
Sure.
other.
Yep, no, I think appeals is where I need to be. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for yours.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to approve the minutes.
No,
No,
there's other things, thank you
Okay.
though.
Gotta move it along.
Anya, would you like to speak about code updates?
Yeah, and we can save this till the December meeting if you'd like, but, we're just starting updating our land development code, and zoning and everything involved with that, so, we're trying to get feedback from as many people as possible, this commission, planning board, and other commissions as well. So I just wanted to ask if you all had any thoughts about our current code, how that impacts development in the city, our current zoning, how that might, you think, interact with historic preservation. So just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I guess I've thought in the past a little bit about including, we've done these wonderful studies of these historic zones and areas. And the surveys that Mike has done, I think, have been really valuable, and maybe, I think, considering the addition of some historic zones like Whitney Park. We've talked, I think Mike said they were gonna study, they wanted to do a survey over by the airport of like the military areas, and maybe creating a district surrounding those, depending on his findings, would be valuable, because that does tell an important part of this history of Bangor. Maybe beginning to consider increasing the number of historic zonings.
I think there should be some consideration to below ground resources. The historic preservation code is very slanted towards above ground, historic resources, and, we're not just need to be aware of structures, but sites, objects, districts, as well as structures.
Yeah.
And, there are communities out there that have some great archaeological ordinances in their city code. St. Augustine, Florida is a prime example. Bangor does have a lot of history to it. A lot of that history is below ground. I just would hate the city to be so focused on our buildings that we miss what's right at our feet, or right beneath our feet.
Yeah.
Just a consideration that I have as an archaeologist.
I think that's a really good point, Nathaniel. There's,
I see people metal detecting all the time
I know.
in our historic districts, and it's a great way to make my eye twitch while I
oh,
drive. but-
tell me about it. I've had people come knock on my door and say, can I metal detect your property?
Yeah, and as long as it works with the state.
Yeah.
State laws and rules for that. But, I think Bangor is really missing out on a chance to really look at the full picture as well. Because does the city have a plan if, we're building a new structure downtown for something and all of a sudden we tear up a Native American site? Like, does the city have a plan for that? Does the city have something for that in its code or in its ordinance? And maybe they do, and I'm just not aware, but, it would be nice to see, in addition to say, we're looking at this historic district for the old Dow Air Force Base, what are we looking at that's beneath the surface if we're gonna do construction there? Because I guarantee you, as someone that lived in the military barracks, there's a lot of material culture right around some of those buildings. Probably a solid 15, 20 centimeters under the dirt, so.
And I think if we're commissioning, survey of the historic districts and buildings, that there probably is a lot of value to having an archaeological survey done of like potentially waterfront areas. We'd have to have the Wabanaki stakeholders involved in this by all means.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think that is a really interesting area that we could go as a city and be involved in with the commission.
Well, and just think, we're coming up on what, Liam, is it the 250th of the American Revolution?
Yep, next
Yep.
year, or 2 years.
And we have a Revolutionary War battle site right across from Sea Dog.
Yep.
maybe not the one to be the most proud of, but we have one. You
Well,
know?
it's littered along there, yeah.
It's along there and, but I just would like to see something like that worked into our code or
Yeah.
ordinances.
I did reach out to the tribe, like when we were applying for that grant, the certified local government grant, and didn't hear back at the time, but I'm actually gonna meet with some members from there, and I think actually from their cultural
Chris
resources office,
Alexis.
about this process, the land development code, and while we're meeting, I definitely gonna be asking them about special places in the city, and so maybe if I can find that out, we can look at historic preservation for those.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Anywhere there's a confluence of water, you're gonna have
Yep.
sensitive areas especially.
Yeah.
So anywhere where a stream or something flows into the Penobscot is gonna be pretty hot.
Unfortunately, so much of it's already been disturbed.
Oh, and so much of it's been buried too, like it's been built up and buried and built up and flooded and deposited and all that. But I mean, it's still, pre-contact and contact sites, we have all of that here.
Nathaniel, can I digress with you for 1 second? Do you know if they did a survey when they built the amphitheater? Just out of your knowledge?
I wanna say they should have.
Yeah, I know what the
Like,
law said.
they should have at least, if there was any state or federal funding, it would have been subject to the National Historic Preservation Act. I think all that they may have been required to do was send a letter to SHPO and basically ask if there was anything
I
there.
know. I'm sure those publishers did a lot of work.
Or if they did find anything, they just put it in bags and took it to a tree line, but
Yeah, unfortunately.
that's not for here or there.
Anne Marie or Liam, anything you would like to see?
Well,
far as code is concerned.
probably everybody knows about this, but there was a way of bringing goods off the ships on the Penobscot. And there's an underground sort of system of storing them and transporting them between buildings, I believe. So it would be interesting to know more about that. I think there's a system of passageways or something under some of the buildings. Down where the Bangor Savings Bank is.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
It makes a world of sense.
Oh, yeah, as many ships.
So I would like to know about that, Anya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we ever, did Mike get funding to do increased survey work architecturally?
I believe so.
Because I think city council was gonna vote on that and I never knew if they did.
That's the grant.
Oh, that's your grant,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so currently we have an RFP out, so we have to go out to bid. So I think the process ends in December or later this month.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
I look forward to you guys' successful grant writing.
Well, yeah, no, we got the grant.
Oh, you have the proposal, oh,
Yes, so now that we have the grant, we have to put out an RFP to get a contractor.
Oh.
Yeah,
wonderful.
so, yeah.
Well, I hope it comes to fruition, because I think his work has been so
Yeah,
wonderful
it has been terrific.
and informative.
Yeah.
This goes with those flowers.
I think an issue for me is about the sort of evolution of how we're encouraged to think about historic districts, not just to recognize the most beautiful and grandest mansions in the city. And so one of the places of historic significance that I think is often overlooked in Bangor is the Parker Street neighborhood, which was an African-American neighborhood in the late 19th and early 20th century, and that might be worth looking into some kind of historic designation there.
Okay.
Liam, where's Parker Street? I'm not familiar with it.
I think it is kind of over behind the Dunkin' Donuts, kind of on the
Oh, up-
west side of town.
Okay, by the Shaw's area?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's behind Shaw's, exactly.
It is.
Oh, I think that
It's
would
exactly
be a
there.
wonderful use of survey resources and,
I think the first African-American legislator in the state of Maine who was elected from Portland was raised in the Parker Street neighborhood.
Yeah, Talbot.
Talbot, Charles
Yeah,
Talbot.
All right.
Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It's getting late.
Yeah.
Did you want your,
Oh, yeah, you have a couple fancy color
I can
photos.
send them home with that.
Yeah.
That works, yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nathaniel, I believe I heard earlier something about the minutes.
Motion to approve minutes from
Second,
last month's meeting.
Matthew?
second. Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't here.
I will vote yes. Minutes approved, and thank you all.